Mirror Talk, the language of the nervous system, episode 8, anchoring safety. Welcome back to Mirror Talk, the language of the nervous system. If you've been journeying with me through this series, you'll know by now that our words are more than tools for communication. They're signals, mirrors, and maps. They trace the contours of our nervous system, echo our earliest experiences, and reveal how safety and fear speak through us long before we choose a single phrase. In this episode, we'll explore anchoring safety, how language becomes a stabilizing force, not just in what we say, but in the tone, tempo, and truth we carry when fear arrives. Because fear always arrives. It's part of being human. Yet many of us were never shown what safety sounds like, or how to speak it into existence when our bodies want to run, freeze, or fight. The nervous system doesn't listen for logic. It listens for tone. It doesn't seek eloquence. It seeks attunement. When fear floods our body, we often reach for words to make sense of it, to fix, explain, or rationalize. Yet those words only land if the nervous system believes them. You're safe, said with tension, sounds like a lie. I'm here, said with shallow breath, feels unreliable. The body learns safety not from the sentence, but from the state behind it. This is why anchoring safety isn't about reciting affirmations or adopting positive language. It's about building a felt vocabulary of regulation, words, tones, and rhythms that cue calm through consistency and congruence. In nervous system language, NSL, we understand that language isn't just mental, it's physiological. Every phrase is a pulse, every tone a heartbeat. And in mirror linguistic hypothesis, MLH, we recognize that meaning is mirrored. The state we speak from becomes the state we evoke. So when fear speaks, the question isn't only, what do I say? But who's saying it? The anxious self seeking reassurance, or the anchored self offering steadiness. This episode moves us from reclamation to regulation. In the last chapter, The Script of Silence, we explored how suppressed voice and obedience were once survival strategies. Many of us learned that silence protected us from rejection, conflict, or harm. But silence alone cannot sustain sovereignty. A sovereign voice is not only free, it's steady. Anchoring safety is what allows that voice to remain calm in uncertainty, curious in conflict, and compassionate in fear. When we speak of fear here, we're not limiting it to danger in the physical sense. We're talking about fear as a state, the physiological contraction that happens when life feels too much, too fast, or too foreign. It's the quickened breath before confrontation, the tightening chest before telling a truth, the impulse to withdraw from disapproval. Fear shows up in our words, our tone, and our timing. Some of us speak faster, others go silent. Some over-explain, others shut down. Yet beneath each response is the same yearning to feel safe enough to stay. Anchoring safety means learning how to stay in the body, in the moment, in connection, when our instinct is to flee. This practice is not theoretical, it's lived. Every conversation is a test of regulation. Every disagreement, a test of attunement. Whether online or in person, we're constantly translating nervous systems. A single phrase can expand the chest or close the throat. A single sentence can signal threat or trust. Think of the last time someone told you, calm down. Did your body soften or stiffen? Most of us tighten, not because we don't want to calm down, but because the phrase denies our current state. Safety can't be commanded, it must be mirrored. Through mirror talk, we've learned that the words we use and the ones we avoid become scripts our body rehearses. Anchoring safety teaches us to rewrite those scripts in real time. It's where we stop chasing approval and start cultivating coherence. Coherence means our language, tone, and physiology align. The body believes the words because they arise from a regulated state. Fear thrives on fragmentation when thought, feeling, and speech are split apart. Safety thrives on integration when what we think, feel, and say move together. This is why we'll explore both co-regulation and self-regulation in this episode. Co-regulation is the nervous system's native language. It's how we first learned safety through another's gaze, voice, and presence. Long before words, safety was a heartbeat, a rhythm, a tone. Self-regulation, then, is not isolation. It's learned mimicry, a continuation of those cues once mirrored to us. To anchor ourselves, we must first understand what anchored us once and what didn't. But here's the challenge. Many of us grew up around dysregulated anchors, parents or authority figures who said, "You're fine," while their voice shook. Environments where calm was control and silence meant survival. The nervous system remembers incongruence. It recognizes tone before trust. So to speak safety now, we must first become congruent, aware of the gap between the state we claim and the state we're in. This awareness is the cornerstone of NSL. It's also where MLH becomes transformative. The nervous system reads language through resonance. I'm safe feels true only if the tone matches the message. Otherwise, the phrase becomes cognitive wallpaper, decoration without depth. So how do we anchor safety in real time? By learning to translate fear, not suppress it, not bypass it, but respond to it in its own syntax. Fear speaks in contraction. Safety answers with expansion. Fear speeds, safety slows. Fear demands certainty. Safety offers presence. Throughout this episode, we'll explore practical tools for building a living lexicon of safety, phrases, tones, and gestures that restore coherence. We'll examine how metaphor shapes our perception of danger, how tone carries trust, and how repetition rewires not just thought, but physiology. Because anchoring safety isn't a single act, it's a cumulative rhythm. Every time we respond to fear with curiosity instead of control, we strengthen a neural pathway of peace. We'll also look at how this applies relationally. Co-regulation is the invisible current in every dialogue. When someone speaks from panic, our response can either mirror panic or anchor presence. Your overreacting amplifies threat. I'm here, we can move through this, calms it. The difference isn't semantics, it's safety. Through MLH, we understand that meaning isn't contained in words alone, it's co-created in resonance. This episode will also examine inner anchors, the self-statements that restore steadiness when no one else is there to mirror us. I can take one breath. I'm allowed to move slowly. Safety isn't silence, it's awareness. These aren't affirmations designed to override experience. They're reminders that invite alignment. They return us to the body's pace. And because anchoring safety isn't just psychological but physiological, we'll work with breath, posture, and presence, the three regulators that precede speech. Anchoring is embodied syntax. A low, steady tone says we're not in danger. A slow exhale says we can stay. The body learns safety through what it experiences, not what it's told. Across this journey, we'll continue to connect these ideas to the mirror linguistic hypothesis, the notion that every word reflects a state, and every state reflects a story. Fear often speaks in the grammar of the past, words inherited from alarmed mirrors. Safety, by contrast, is a language we build consciously, word by word, breath by breath. It's a new syntax of self-trust. So as you listen, notice how your body responds. Which phrases feel heavy, which light? Which evoke constriction, which invite space? This isn't about collecting new vocabulary. It's about tuning your system to recognize resonance. Safety is less about what you say and more about what your body hears back. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clearer sense of what safety sounds like, not abstractly, but somatically. You'll be able to identify which words, tones, and metaphors contract your system and which expand it. You'll begin to build a lexicon that steadies you and through you, steadies others, because when one body anchors, another can exhale. Fear may be contagious, but so is calm. When fear rises, become the mirror that steadies the reflection. Let's begin. Fear is frequency, the nervous system's language of alarm. If safety is a language, then fear is its first dialect, raw, instinctive, and immediate. It's the nervous system's way of saying, I've seen this before, or I don't know what happens next. Fear doesn't wait for words. It arrives as breath, pulse, and posture. Long before the mouth moves, the body has already answered. Are we safe? Fear, then, is not the enemy of safety. It's the invitation. It signals that something born, softened tone, automatic apologies, mirrored rhythm. These are fluent, embodied grammars of alarm. State-shaped semantics fear also distorts meaning. A neutral phrase, can we talk, can sound like a threat depending on one's state. This is state-shaped semantics. The nervous system colors interpretation. Two people can recall the same dialogue, yet swear they heard different things. Their bodies were tuned to different frequencies. The body believes tone words alone don't carry meaning. Resonance does. When tone and posture contradict vocabulary, the listener's body trusts the broadcast, not the sentence. Hence, logical reassurance, it's fine, don't worry, fails if spoken from tension. Safety must be felt, not declared. Somatic literacy, reading the state fear is information. To translate it, we need somatic literacy, awareness of our physiological cues before speaking. Notice breath speed, throat tightness, or jaw set. This inventory reveals the state behind the syntax and signals where coherence has been lost. Coherence. Thought, tone, body coherence occurs when thinking, feeling, and speaking align. A regulated system slows speech naturally. Pauses punctuate rather than panic. Vocabulary widens, empathy returns. Safety doesn't erase fear, it gives it room to articulate. Research in polyvagal theory shows that cues like gentle prosody and steady breath activate the ventral vagal state, restoring access to language and empathy. Fear fragments, safety integrates. Practicing congruence. Most of us learned incongruent safety. You're fine, voiced through anxiety. The nervous system remembers these mismatches. Rebuilding trust requires pairing a calm tone with truthful language. A phrase such as I can take one breath mirrors possibility, not pressure. Congruence, words and body matching, is what the system believes. Mirrors of regulation, every communicative act is a reflection. Speaking from fear mirrors alarm, speaking from calm mirrors safety. Co-regulation leverages this. Another steady tone can downshift our own system faster than reasoning. Mirror neurons echo the state as well as sound. When alone, self-mirroring, softly voicing reassurance, loops auditory signals through emotion centers, letting the voice become both anchor and anchored. Hidden forms of fear often disguises itself as perfectionism, control, or intellectual excess, linguistic armor protecting vulnerability. Fluency in NSL is measured by flexibility, not verbosity, the capacity to shift tone and tempo with changing states. Naming the state replace I'm fine with I notice my chest is tight. This simple naming recruits the prefrontal cortex and calms the amygdala, affect labeling. Honest language bridges alarm and awareness. Suppression sustains it. Listening for frequency in others, in conflict, tuned to the state beneath the story. Raised voice or retreat may signal fight or flight. Respond to the frequency. Let's slow down together. I'm here. Such NSL phrases anchor regulation without denying reality. Even online, written cues caps brevity, delay, and carry frequency. Recognizing this prevents misattunement in digital dialogue. From noise to music, fear is not interference but information, a melody seeking harmony. Its grammar is contraction, safety is expansion. Translation begins when we answer tension with curiosity and pace with presence. Safety isn't the absence of fear, it's the fluency to speak through it. Reflection prompts notice. One recent conversation where fear shaped your tone. Name the state you were in: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Rehearse one NSL phrase you could use next time to anchor safety. Fear has always been part of our lexicon. When we learn to read its frequency, we transform it from alarm to awareness, from reflex to resonance. Co-regulation. Safety as shared syntax. Human beings are wired for connection, and our nervous systems evolved not in isolation, but in dialogue. Long before words, safety was transmitted through the subtleties of breath, tone, and presence. John Bowlby's attachment theory called this the secure base, the calm caregiver whose regulated body provided a template for future self-soothing. The infant doesn't learn safety by instruction. It learns through co-regulation, the synchronization of two systems, until the smaller one can hold its own rhythm. The social nervous system, in adulthood, the same biology governs our communication. When we enter a conversation, our nervous system scans for cues. Is the tone warm or clipped? Are the eyes soft or hard? Does the breath around us feel hurried or steady? These microsignals determine whether language lands as an invitation or an intrusion. Safety is not simply said, it is sensed. Tone, breath, and gaze, the triad of calm in nervous system language (NSL). Co-regulation is built on three primary cues: tone, breath, and gaze. Tone conveys the melodic contour of safety. Low melodic voices activate the ventral vagal pathway associated with social engagement. Sharp or monotone delivery signals a potential threat. Breath provides tempo. A slow exhale tells the listener's body there is time. A held breath warns of incoming impact. Gaze anchors presence. Soft focus communicates availability. A fixed or darting look mirrors hypervigilance. When these cues align, conversation becomes a steadying field. Words then function as guides rather than guards. Yet many of us learned to speak in rooms where regulation was scarce. We internalized hurried speech, defensive pacing, or the brittle humor that masks unease. The result: bodies that broadcast alarm even while mouths insist I'm fine. Co-regulation asks us to retune, to let physiology set the rhythm of dialogue instead of inherited urgency. Mirroring in motion. We mirror what we meet. According to the mirror linguistic hypothesis, MLH, every exchange is a hall of mirrors. Language does not travel one way, it rebounds. The state we express becomes the state we evoke. Speak from tension, and we summon tension. Speak from steadiness, and the room exhales with us. Consider two common responses to anxiety. Reactive reassurance: it's fine, stop worrying. Though intended to help, the phrase contracts the field. The command tone negates the listener's feeling and spikes cortisol. Regulating presence: I'm here, we can move through this. This phrasing expands space. I'm here signals proximity. We invokes partnership. Can move implies motion, not entrapment. The listener's body receives permission to breathe. In NSL terms, the first statement triggers defensive mobilization. The second invites social engagement. Co-regulation, then, is less about content and more about contour. The rhythm, pacing, and pronouns that shape safety. A useful check-in during conversation is: did my words open or close the other person's body? When shoulders drop, we're speaking safety. When jaws clench, the syntax slips into alarm. Linguistic co-regulation in practice. To cultivate this shared syntax, three dimensions matter: phrasing, pacing, and presence. Phrasing favor collaborative, over-corrective language. Phrases beginning with let's, we can, or I'm with you distribute agency. They transform hierarchy into partnership. Avoid abrupt imperatives. Stop. Don't. Calm down that mirror fight energy. Pacing match tempo before guiding change. If someone speaks rapidly from panic, begin near their rhythm, then gradually slow your own. The nervous system entrains through subtle shifts. Abrupt slowing can feel patronizing or disjointed. Presence regulation is impossible without genuine attention. Multitasking fractures safety. A steady gaze, nod, or minimal encourager, I see, signals containment. Presence tells the other nervous system, you matter enough for me to stay. Small phrases become powerful regulators when paired with a congruent tone. Take your time. I'm listening. We don't have to solve this yet. Each statement cues permission, the essence of calm communication. Co-regulation also extends beyond the crisis. Even mundane exchanges, ordering coffee, greeting a colleague, can either heighten or soften collective stress. Societies built on hurry normalize micro-dysregulation. Deliberate slowness becomes a quiet rebellion. From external to internal mirrors experiencing co-regulation externally trains the template for self-regulation. Once the body recognizes what safety feels like, it can reproduce the pattern alone. The voice that once anchored you becomes an inner echo. Over time, you internalize phrases such as, "We can take this one step at a time. I'm still here. It's okay to pause." Spoken inwardly in a calm tone, these statements reactivate ventral pathways, proving that regulation is transferable. The outer mirror becomes an internal compass. However, reproduction is not mimicry. True integration requires an authentic state, not a theatrical tone. Self-soothing fails when performed from tension. The task is to generate sincerity through breath first, language second. Regulation is a sequence, not a script. Reflection prompt. Take a moment to recall an interaction where someone's tone made you exhale. What qualities were present? Warmth, rhythm, steadiness. Which part of your body softened first? How did their pacing influence your own? Write a brief note or voice recording describing that experience. Then consider, how might I offer this same steadiness in my next conversation? Practice. Before your next dialogue, pause for one deep exhale. Feel your feet, lower your shoulders and silently repeat, "I can speak slowly." Notice how this anchors both you and the listener. Co-regulation shows us what safety feels like, the breath that slows ours, the tone that invites steadiness, the presence that tells our body it can stay. But true nervous system fluency means carrying that steadiness within. The goal isn't dependence on calm others, it's the capacity to mirror calm back to ourselves. Every time someone's grounded tone steadied us, our nervous system recorded a template, a rhythm, a phrase, a posture. Those patterns can now be replayed internally. This is the bridge from shared syntax to self-syntax, from "we can move through this" to "I can take one breath." In the next element, inner anchors, self-regulation through speech, we'll explore how language becomes a physiological steering wheel, how simple phrases, paired with breath and posture, can stabilize state in real time. You'll learn to craft somatic scripts, short, embodied statements that anchor presence when fear or urgency pulls you away. Inner anchors, self-regulation through speech. When the external world trembles, the first instinct of the nervous system is to seek rhythm, something repeatable, something that signals continuity amidst uncertainty. The breath becomes short, the heart quickens, and the body whispers, "Find the pattern again." In this search, we rediscover the ancient truth: language itself is a pattern. Each word we speak carries cadence, breath, and tone, a pulse that either tightens or loosens the body's grip on the present. This is the essence of self-regulation through speech, using words as rhythmic instruments that cue safety from within. Not self-talk as affirmation or control, but as communication, a dialogue between your thinking mind and your sensing body. The nervous system doesn't listen to content, it listens to tone, timing, and texture. That's why the words "I'm fine" can sound like threat, and "I'm not okay" can sound like truth. Language becomes physiological, it either anchors or agitates. The voice as a steering wheel every breath before a word sets direction. Every tone acts like a compass. The nervous system language (NSL) framework teaches that voice and body co-regulate in an unbroken feedback loop. When you raise your tone, the heart quickens. When you soften it, blood pressure lowers. The nervous system hears your voice before your mind interprets it. To speak gently to yourself is to steer physiology back towards safety. Whispering "I can take one breath" is not empty comfort, it's a direct neurological cue. The vagus nerve, which governs calm and connection, responds to vocal vibration. This is why singing, chanting, or humming are universal acts of regulation. So when you talk to yourself, imagine your voice as the steering wheel of your inner landscape. Every phrase becomes a turn towards steadiness or towards storm. The physiology of inner dialogue, the brain is constantly narrating. Even in silence, it tells stories about danger or safety. This is the default mode network, a system that maps self and time. When the tone of that inner narration becomes harsh, the amygdala, our emotional alarm, lights up. When the narration is softened, the prefrontal cortex comes online, restoring reasoning and empathy. This is not metaphor, it's measurement. Studies in neuropsychology show that self-directed compassion increases connectivity in regions that inhibit fear. Simply put, a calm inner voice changes your biochemistry. From the perspective of the mirror-linguistic hypothesis, MLH, this happens because the inner voice is an echo of external voices, the tonal imprints of early caregivers. To speak gently to yourself is to reparent your nervous system in real time. When you say "it's okay," you're allowed to pause, you rewrite the script that once said, "keep going or you'll fall behind." The nervous system updates its story about what safety feels like. Anchor statements. The linguistic handholds of calm anchor statements are not affirmations. They are instructions to the body in its own language. When stress floods the system, attention fragments. The goal of an anchor phrase is to narrow that field to restore coherence between thought, breath, and action. Each word becomes a handhold on the cliff of reactivity. Examples: I can take one breath. I'm in the present. This moment is real, not the past. Safety isn't silence, it's awareness. I can slow down. Each statement follows a rhythm. Brief, low stress. The movement grounds the thought, the sound grounds the body. What begins as a technique becomes a reflex. Somatic scripts reprogram procedural memory, the body's implicit sense of how we survive. When repeated, they create bottom-up safety, calm that originates in sensation rather than reasoning. When combined with language, it becomes bidirectional regulation, feeling and meaning syncing in real time. This is how language transforms from description into medicine. The linguistic autopilot, most of what we say, aloud or internally, comes from habit, not intention. Phrases like, I can't do this, it's always my fault, are old reflexes of helplessness. They were survival codes in unsafe environments. But now, they are outdated commands that still trigger cortisol and constrict the breath. In cognitive neuroscience, this is known as automaticity, the brain's efficiency mechanism. It saves energy by repeating what's familiar, even when it harms us. To interrupt this autopilot, NSL uses a process called linguistic interception, hearing your own stress syntax in real time. Notice when your phrasing shrinks possibility, I'll never, I can't, it's always, and replace it with words that open choice. Maybe not yet. I can try one step. Something different might be possible. Small linguistic openings translate into physiological ones: slower pulse, wider breath, steadier gaze. The nervous system learns hope not as concept, but as rhythm. The subconscious scriptwriter psychology estimates that most decisions and reactions occur below awareness. Our inner speech is largely shaped by implicit memory, stored emotional experience, not explicit narrative. This is why trauma recovery often feels like decoding a foreign language. The basal ganglia and amygdala record not words, but patterns of intensity. When a tone, phrase, or facial expression matches that pattern, the old program runs automatically. You can't logic your way out of this. You must introduce a new rhythm. Every time you pause before reacting, breathe, phrase differently, lower your tone, you're performing a micro-interruption. Neuroscientists call this response latency extension, creating space between impulse and action. That space is neuroplasticity in motion. Within that single second, choice reappears, and within choice, safety is rebuilt. Digital overload and inner anchoring online communication amplifies dysregulation because it removes tone, breath, and synchrony. A message typed in caps or rushed punctuation can feel like a shout. The body doesn't know the difference between a digital threat and a physical one. Cortisol still rises. This is why many feel drained after scrolling. Each notification acts as a micro-threat, keeping the nervous system in partial activation. NSL calls this synthetic arousal, the illusion of urgency created by digital rhythm. To anchor yourself online, slow your scroll, let your eyes rest between posts. Breathe before replying. Read your own messages aloud before sending. Hear the tone beneath the words. Use punctuation as pacing, a comma instead of an exclamation, an ellipsis for gentleness. Language regulates even through pixels. You are still broadcasting your nervous system. To regulate in the digital sphere is to reclaim the human tempo from machines. The mirror of regulation. When your language steadies, others' bodies respond. Mirror neurons fire not only when we move, but when we perceive intention and tone. A calm voice can synchronize heart rates across people. A patient message can lower anxiety in the reader. This is co-regulation through language, the art of steadying others by steadying yourself. From the MLH perspective, this is a restoration of mirror integrity, your nervous system becoming a reliable reflection rather than a distorted projection. The self becomes both anchor and signal, the one who stabilizes rather than spreads storm. Through anchored language, safety becomes communicable. Practice the 3-3-6 breath with phrase 1. Inhale through the nose for 3 counts. 2. Hold for 3 counts, feel the pause between thoughts. 3. Exhale through the mouth for 6 counts, softening the shoulders. 4. During exhale whisper, I can slow down. This simple pattern extends exhalation, signaling safety to the vagus nerve. When paired with a phrase, it encodes safety linguistically and somatically. Practiced regularly, the phrase becomes a physiological anchor. Eventually, the body associates those words with calm, even when said mentally. That's when language becomes autonomic, safety spoken into the bloodstream. Reflection prompts: ask yourself, which words bring my body back when fear rises? What tone do I use when I comfort myself? Which phrases shrink me and which expand me? Do I speak to myself as though I am fragile or capable? When I'm triggered, do I narrate panic or possibility? These questions aren't for performance. They are a way of listening to your own linguistic nervous system. Because behind every reaction lies a sentence you've rehearsed for years. To rewrite it is to begin again. Integration, the return to coherence. When you learn to anchor through speech, calm stops being circumstantial. You become your own steady frequency, grounded enough to absorb chaos without dissolving in it. In NSL, this is vagal authorship, reclaiming authorship over your internal narrative. In MLH, it's mirror recalibration, ensuring what reflects outward is clarity, not confusion. Safety becomes participatory, not something you wait for, but something you generate. You speak yourself into coherence, and coherence speaks you back into connection, toward the grammar of grounding. When the inner voice steadies, language itself begins to change. Words soften, syntax slows, the nervous system begins to write a new grammar, one that teaches the body how to interpret reality differently. Once anchored, language becomes less defensive and more directive. You no longer speak from fear but from form, shaping perception instead of reacting to it. In the next element, the grammar of grounding, we'll explore how the metaphors we live by sculpt the nervous system's sense of safety, how words like battle, fight, or storm prime defense, while phrases like wave, season, or chapter teach endurance and grace. The grammar of grounding. In NSL terms, metaphor is a state primer. Each word becomes a micro-signal to the nervous system, tense or release, danger or data. In MLH, these metaphors act as mirrors, reflecting back the world we expect to see. When our inner dialogue is saturated with conflict imagery, the self becomes a battlefield. When it shifts toward cooperation, the self becomes a landscape of possibility. Grounding begins when we change not just our words, but our worldview. The problem with combat language modern life normalizes conflict metaphors. We fight traffic, we battle depression, we attack problems. We crush goals, we defeat procrastination. Each phrase calls forth tension, adrenaline, and vigilance. The muscles brace, the breath shortens, the jaw tightens. Over time, the body begins to interpret existence itself as struggle. While these metaphors can offer short-term motivation, they exact a long-term cost, chronic arousal, exhaustion, and the inability to rest without guilt. They train the system to find identity in adversity. Reframing is not about denial, it's about directing energy. When we trade fight for face or battle for befriend, the physiology follows. I'm facing my anxiety invokes eye contact, curiosity, openness. I'm fighting my anxiety activates combat posture, tunnel vision, and clenched fists. To ground through language, we must speak as navigators, not soldiers. The medicine of metaphors such as wave, weather, and chapter gently remind the body that experience is temporal, not terminal. A wave rises and falls, it cannot last forever. A storm passes, the air clears, a chapter closes, the story continues. These metaphors regulate by introducing time and movement, two qualities that the body loses when trapped in trauma or panic. In freeze, time collapses, in fight, it accelerates. A metaphor that reintroduces temporality restores perspective. Try this small exercise. When you notice distress, complete aloud the sentence. This is a space for word, and let your intuition choose. Is it a wave, a cloud, or not? Then ask, what does this shape want? A wave wants to move. A cloud wants to rain. A knot wants to loosen. By offering the mind imagery, you offer the body action. The metaphor becomes a map for movement. Grounding language is spacious language. It makes room for process, for patience, for possibility. From punishment to permission in MLH, mirrors aren't just reflective, they're instructive. The language we use becomes the feedback loop that teaches us what's allowed. For many, early mirrors were corrective, not compassionate. Words like stop, don't, wrong, and no became the grammar of identity. Safety was conditional, permission was scarce. To rewrite this internal grammar, we introduce anchor words that replace punishment with permission. Instead of stop crying, we try it's safe to feel. Instead of calm down, we try let's slow together. Instead of don't be weak, we try you're allowed to rest. These small linguistic shifts communicate sovereignty over suppression. The nervous system learns that stillness doesn't require scolding, it requires support. In NSL, tone precedes content. The body registers how something is said before what is said. A calm grammar is one where pacing, pauses, and rhythm convey presence. To practice, next time you speak to yourself, pay attention to cadence. Do your sentences rush, command, or soothe? Does your grammar sound like home or hostility? You are not just speaking about your state, you're speaking to it. The syntax of soothing grounding language has its own syntax, slow, descriptive, permissive. It uses conjunctions like, and instead of but, widening acceptance rather than narrowing focus. Compare, I'm anxious, but I'm trying to be calm. I'm anxious, and I'm learning to soothe myself. The first sentence sets up opposition, one must cancel the other. The second invites coexistence, a more accurate reflection of nervous system complexity. Similarly, modal verbs shape safety. I must calm down shaped by coercion. I can calm down shapes capacity. I may calm down seeks permission. These subtle shifts invite cooperation from within. The body resists orders, it responds to options. Even punctuation matters. Full stops can feel final, commas compassionate. Try ending self-talk with ellipses, implying continuation. I'm still learning. The nervous system, attuned to rhythm, senses room to breathe. Grounding through grammar awareness. To bring mindfulness into daily speech, begin with observation. For one day, listen for metaphors of motion versus metaphors of war. Notice how each alters breath and posture. When tension rises, ask, what am I telling my body about the world right now? Then consciously shift the frame. Replace I'm stuck with I'm pausing. Replace I'm behind with I'm pacing myself. Replace I'm losing control with I'm learning balance. Each reframe moves you from fixation to fluidity. Over time, the nervous system stops scanning for threat and starts listening for truth. Language doesn't just describe reality, it designs it. When words soften, muscles follow. Embodying calm grammar. To embody the grammar of grounding, try this practice. 1. Pause before responding. Give syntax space to settle. 2. Lower your tone by half an octave. Signal safety through sound. 3. Slow your phrasing. Match speech tempo to your breath. 4. Select metaphors that move, not fight. 5. Speak in full sentences, avoiding fragments that mirror fragmentation. This isn't performance, it's pacing. The goal is the nervous system doesn't generalize safety from abstract ideals. It learns through repetition, familiarity, and resonance. A phrase that calms one person might agitate another. You're okay may feel dismissive to someone whose emotions were historically invalidated, yet I'm with you might signal presence and permission. Building your own lexicon is an act of linguistic autonomy, reclaiming authorship over the language that governs your inner world. In NSL, this means identifying phrases that cue regulation rather than collapse. In MLH, it's choosing mirrors that reflect truth, not trauma. To personalize language, we must first listen, not to the mind's theories of safety, but to the body's responses. The body is the final editor. The somatic test, expansion or contraction. To determine whether a phrase belongs in your lexicon, observe its immediate physiological impact. Speak it aloud, then pause. Does your chest open or tighten? Does breath deepen or shorten? Does your jaw soften or clench? Do your eyes lift or narrow? These micro-reactions reveal the body's verdict. A phrase that induces expansion, shoulders down, breath low, gaze steady, communicates safety. One that contracts the system communicates threat, even if the words sound kind. For example, try these two statements aloud. Calm down. Let's slow down together. Though semantically similar, their prosody and pronouns shift the physiology. The first commands from above, the second invites from beside. Safety thrives in collaboration, not control. Your lexicon will grow from these subtle discernments. What matters is not linguistic elegance, but embodied effect. The nervous system is your dictionary. The three lenses of lexicon creation. When building your living lexicon, consider three dimensions of experience. 1. State-based language, phrases tailored to your current physiological state. When anxious, I can slow down. When frozen, a small movement is enough. When overwhelmed, this moment will pass. 2. Context-based language, phrases designed for recurring environments or triggers. In conflict, let's pause and breathe. At work, I can do one thing at a time. Online, I don't need to respond immediately. 3. Identity-based language, phrases that reshape how you address the self. From I'm too sensitive to my sensitivity is intelligence. From I'm behind to I move in my own rhythm. From I need fixing to I'm still unfolding. Each layer reinforces a different loop of safety, state, situation, and self. Together, they form a holistic lexicon, one that meets you wherever dysregulation appears. Journaling the language of safety, begin with a simple prompt. What does safety sound like in my language? Sit quietly, close your eyes, and recall a moment, however brief, when you felt genuinely safe. Perhaps a tone of voice, a place, a song lyric, or a sentence from someone you trust. Write down any words or phrases associated with that memory. Then, notice patterns. Do the words emphasize presence? I'm here, permission. It's okay to rest, or process, this will pass. Do they rely on I statements, autonomy, or we statements, connection? Next, reflect on phrases that tighten your body, commands, critiques, cliches. These belong to an old grammar, one built in survival. Write them down too. Awareness is the first revision. Your journal becomes a translation table. One column for the language of alarm, another for the language of ease. You're not erasing the old words. You're retraining the reflex that speaks them. Recording and repetition, the lexicon in motion, because tone carries safety faster than content. Hearing your own voice express calm builds powerful neural associations. Record yourself speaking your chosen phrases slowly, with warmth and steadiness. No performance, just sincerity. Play these recordings at transitional times, morning waking, commute, pre-sleep. The voice becomes a regulatory echo, teaching the nervous system that safety is self-sourced. If the idea feels uncomfortable at first, that's natural. Many who grew up silencing their needs find self-directed reassurance awkward. Over time, the awkwardness fades, familiarity replaces disbelief. You are learning a new dialect, one of gentleness. Neuroscience confirms that repetition builds circuitry. Each replay strengthens the bond between phrase and physiology. Words that once felt foreign begin to feel like home. Integrating gesture and prosody safety is multisensory. A lexicon isn't complete without its nonverbal grammar. Every phrase can be paired with a gesture or rhythm that deepens embodiment. Resting a hand on the chest while saying, I'm here. Lengthening exhale with, I can slow down. Softening gaze with, I'm allowed to see clearly. Prosody, the melody of speech, also matters. Speak slower than you think. Allow pauses. Let your tone rise gently at the end of sentences to convey openness rather than closure. This full-bodied communication tells the nervous system, we're not rushing, we're rooted. When gesture, breath, and word align, safety becomes choreography, a dance between thought and sensation. From imitation to innovation early in the process, you may borrow phrases from therapists, teachers, or writers. This is natural, imitation is scaffolding, but a living lexicon must ultimately sound like you. Language learned through rote repetition may not resonate when stress peaks. The nervous system trusts what feels authentic. If I am safe rings hollow, modify it. I'm finding safety, or I'm safe enough to slow down. The goal is authentic resonance, not perfection. You're composing a vocabulary that fits your nervous system's accent. Think of it like music. The same notes, arranged differently, create new meaning. Your lexicon is your melody of regulation. No one else can sing it for you. Practice. The daily lexicon loop. Try this 5-minute daily ritual for 1 week. 1 morning, choose one phrase from your lexicon. Speak it aloud, pairing it with one breath cycle. 2. Midday, notice your tone in conversation. Does it match the calm you're cultivating? Use one phrase internally to re-anchor. 3. Evening, journal one moment where language shifted your state. Add any new words discovered that day. By week's end, review your notes. Which phrases proved reliable? Which fell flat? Update accordingly. The lexicon is iterative, edited by experience, not ego. Over time, you'll carry it effortlessly. When activation rises, the words arrive unbidden, like old friends reminding you to breathe. Reflection, anchoring before asking. In moments of stress, we often reach outward, hoping another's steadiness can contain us. Yet co-regulation is strongest when preceded by self-regulation. Before you ask another to hold space, see if you can anchor yourself with one phrase, one breath, one gesture. This is not isolation, it's initiation. It ensures that when connection arrives, it's chosen, not clung to. Ask yourself, can I meet my fear with a familiar word? Can I soften my breath before seeking reassurance? Can I speak safety before I hear it? Each yes strengthens trust in your own voice, the first and final mirror of calm. The identity of safety. As your lexicon matures, you may notice subtle identity shifts. Phrases like I can try evolve into I know how. I hope becomes I choose. Safety moves from possibility to posture. Language and identity are entwined. What you say, you become. When your words stabilize your body, they also rewrite your story. You are no longer the one needing safety. You are the one creating it. Through NSL, your nervous system learns fluent regulation. Through MLH, your reflection changes shape. The mirror no longer shows the frightened child, but the adult who learned to listen. This is the quiet revolution of a living lexicon. Every phrase a proof that growth is possible, every breath a new translation of peace. Journal prompt. Write 5 phrases that consistently soothe you. Speak each aloud. Which feels most natural? Which feels aspirational? Note the body's response. Keep the ones that exhale. Integration practice. Over the next week, build a small glossary of safety words, 10 phrases, 3 gestures, 1 tone. Record them if helpful. These will form the foundation of your living lexicon. Reflection. Can I anchor myself before I ask another to? Because safety built through language doesn't end at calm, it becomes character. Safety built through language extends beyond regulation, it reshapes identity. Once we can speak calm, we must live it. In the next element, we'll bring these words into motion, applying them in real-world interactions, moments of conflict, and digital dialogue. The anchor in Action A lexicon only becomes living when it leaves the page. Safety matures through repetition, but it's proven in practice in the heated moment, the loaded silence. The misunderstanding typed too fast. Anchoring isn't about control, it's about conductivity, carrying coherence into places that have forgotten it. We all know the gap between intention and impact, wanting calm but hearing ourselves snap, typing a message meant to connect but laced with defense. In those gaps, the living lexicon becomes a bridge. Every phrase you built is now a stabilizer, each tone a tuning fork. This is safety enacted. Anchoring in conflict tension pulls language towards sharp edges. The first task is not persuasion, but pace. Slow your breath, then your words. Try, let's slow this down. I want to understand. I can see this is hard for you. Each sentence meets tension with steadiness, replacing command with curiosity. Through NSL, tone precedes content. The body hears melody before meaning. Speak as though your breath is the metronome. Let pauses hold what arguments can't. Crisis communication. In panic, speech fractures, fragments, absolutes, hyperbole. The nervous system scrambles for safety through language. It's all falling apart. Anchoring phrases remind the body of sequence and scale. Let's take one thing at a time. We can move through this together. Ground first, guide second. The rhythm matters more than reason. Each slowed syllable restores orientation. Co-regulation begins not with reassurance, but with shared respiration. Everyday microstorm safety practice isn't limited to emergencies. It unfolds in queues, traffic messages unanswered. When frustration rises, whisper the anchor inward. I can choose my pace, or not everything urgent is important. Over time, the repetition rewires reflex. Regulation becomes reflexive fluency without force. Online anchoring screens remove breath from language, yet tone still travels. Punctuation, spacing, and phrasing convey safety or strain. Compare. Why didn't you reply? Hey, just checking in when you time. The first contracts, the second expands. Even silence online speaks. An unanswered message may activate old echoes of neglect. Anchor yourself before assuming meaning. Type after exhale. Remember, digital mirrors are distorted. Don't read reflection as rejection. Mirror practice, stand before your reflection. Speak one phrase from your lexicon, slowly, gently. Notice micro shifts. A shoulder's drop, a throat's ease, eyes softening. The mirror doesn't judge, it translates. Through MLH, reflection clarifies resonance. Does your voice sound like safety? If not, slow down until it does. The nervous system's grammar anchoring is less about perfect words, more about posture. Breath low, jaw loose, gaze kind, the syntax of safety. NSL reminds us, the body is the first sentence, words are the footnotes. Anchor gestures before grammar. A hand over the heart can say, I'm here, louder than paragraphs. A calm pause can rewrite a conversation more than explanations. Practice in layers. Anchor phrases move through 3 layers. Inner self-talk during activation. Interpersonal, speech in dialogue. Interactive, tone across distance, text, calls, posts. Each layer trains a different muscle of awareness. Together, they build consistency, so your language feels the same in all rooms, offline and on. Reflection prompt. Where can I practice anchoring safety in my daily life? Try one domain this week. Family call, team meeting, comment thread. Notice the shift when you respond, not react, when your breath writes before your mouth does. Integration practice before each day. Choose one anchor phrase. Write it on your hand or whisper it with breakfast. Let it be your nervous system's headline. In moments of rush or rupture, return to it. Safety becomes muscle memory through gentle rehearsal. When words move with awareness, they don't just describe the world, they steady it. Anchoring safety begins within, extends between, and finally becomes who you are. The next step isn't more words, it's tone as temperament, language as presence. The steady voice. Every practice in this episode, from co-regulation to anchoring language, points toward one truth. Safety is not a static state. It is a relationship between body, breath, and word. A living lexicon matures into something more than phrases. It becomes a presence, a steady voice that others can feel before they understand. This is the moment where language stops being a tool and becomes temperament. Safety ceases to be what you reach for, it becomes how you move. We often imagine safety as silence, the absence of threat, yet true safety speaks. It reassures, clarifies, steadies. It does not mean perfection. Even the calmest anchor trembles. What matters is the return, the willingness to notice contraction and soften again. Through the mirror linguistic hypothesis, MLH, we recognize that every interaction is reflective. The tone you speak in becomes a mirror of your inner state. And through the nervous system language NSL framework, we see how tone, pacing, and breath act as physiological cues. The steady voice, therefore, is not symbolic, it is somatic. It regulates both speaker and listener in real time. To speak steadily is to breathe consciously. To breathe consciously is to reteach the body that the present is survivable. The evolution of safety, at first anchoring is mechanical, a technique. You catch yourself mid-reaction, recall a phrase, and slow down your breath. Over time, it becomes instinctive. You don't reach for the script, you are the script. The lexicon you built becomes an internal rhythm. In this evolution, your words stop trying to prove safety and begin to project it. People may not recall every sentence you speak, but they'll remember how your tone felt, unhurried, available, trustworthy. A steady voice is not monotone, it's textured with curiosity. It knows when to pause and when to press forward. It honors contrast, soft yet strong, calm yet firm. It listens as much as it leads. This voice emerges not from dominance, but from coherence, alignment between thought, tone, and truth. Reframing the arc. Every episode traces a movement from contraction to expansion. Here the path is simple but profound. Reaction causes speech driven by fear. Regulation raises awareness of choice. Resonance allows tone attuned to connection. Relationship safety shared and sustained. The steady voice is not loud, it is clear. It does not speak to win but to witness. In earlier versions of self, silence might have meant submission, or speech might have meant risk. Now language becomes sovereignty, not to dominate, but to direct your internal state. Each breath before a word is a vote for presence. Each pause is punctuation for peace. The tone you'll be remembered by. We all leave linguistic fingerprints. From scatter tension, others seed calm. Lexicon perhaps I'm here or I can take one breath. Don't rush to believe it. Let the repetition do the work. Throughout the day, use your voice as a barometer. Is it tight, rushed, strained? These are not failures, but feedback. Each signal points to the next softening. In dialogue, test the principles. Pacing, speak half as fast as your mind moves. Volume, use of low tone signal safety. Loud tones can startle. Curiosity, end more sentences with questions. When you feel tension rise, remember, the goal is not composure, but connection. Anchor through authenticity, not control. Real-world ripples. The steady voice ripples outward. In conversation, it invites honesty. In a community, it reduces the contagion of chaos. Online, it de-escalates threads that thrive on reactivity. This is linguistic leadership, not hierarchical, but harmonic. When your words mirror calm, you become a co-regulator of collective nervous systems. Every breath you steady adds coherence to the space around you. You cannot change others' tones, but you can shape the resonance they meet. When you hold steadiness, you model possibility. Safety is contagious too. Integration reflection. Safety isn't found, it's created one word, one breath at a time. Consider one domain of life, family, friendship, digital dialogue, where your voice feels most reactive. Choose a single phrase or practice to anchor that environment. Try it for a week. Observe the micro shifts, less rush, fewer spikes, more pauses. Write down what changes, not just in outcomes, but in how you feel while speaking. That's the metric that matters. Over time, these micro practices layer into trust. Trust in yourself, trust in language, trust in your capacity to stay. The steady voice as identity. Eventually, the steady voice stops being something you use and becomes who you are. You don't anchor because you're anxious. You anchor because you're aligned. In earlier seasons of life, words may have been weapons or shields. Now they are instruments, tuned, intentional, alive, and your permission to excel. You've rewritten the reflexes of fear into responses of faith. Not blind optimism, but embodied knowing. I can handle this moment. I can meet it slowly. This is linguistic maturity, when awareness, compassion, and confidence all merge. As we come to the end of the episode, thank you for reflecting with me today. In this episode, we explored how language can steady storms, how tone, breath, and phrasing transform safety from a concept into a lived reality. Remember, Mirror Talk isn't about perfect speech. It's about present speech, words that feel safe, sincere, and alive in the body. Take what resonated, let go of what didn't. Test your lexicon in life, not for control, but connection. As you move into your week, listen for the spaces where silence once held fear. Fill them with gentle truth. Speak as if every word steadies the world, because it does. In the next episode, Building Bridges, we'll explore how safety extends beyond self into repair, reconnection, and relationship. We'll learn how to rebuild trust after rupture, using language as both scaffold and sanctuary. Until then, may your words be slow, your breath be kind, and your tone steady. You've been listening to Mirror Talk, the language of the nervous system. I'm James Miller.